Good evening, church. It is so good to have you here on this very special worship experience on this Passion Friday. And this evening is going to be quite a bit different. The format's going to be different than our previous worship experiences or our Sunday worship experience. Because tonight we're actually going to journey together in Jesus' last evening here on this earth. And it's a really special one too. It's going to be like nothing that you've seen us do before. And so our prayer is that during this time, that you're able to really experience and hear the love that Jesus has for you. During this special worship experience, there's going to be a time that we take communion. And if you don't know what communion is, it's a time for all of us to come together and do a special spiritual practice that Jesus does in Scripture. And everybody is included. All are welcome. And all you need to have ready before we begin this worship experience is to have a cup of either wine or grape juice or something to drink as such. And then something to eat like a piece of bread or a cracker or something like that. And then we will let you know when you can pull those things out and we will take communion together. Once again, we are very blessed that you are here. You do belong here. You are loved just as you are. And we hope and pray that you do get to experience God's love for you, His passionate love for you. We'll be starting our worship experience here in just a few seconds.
There he was, in Bethany. A rabbi, a miracle worker, a man of God that was so strangely associating with sinners, messed up people. People like the tax collector, people like Simon the leper, people like me. I knew it was a risk. A woman, especially a woman like me, approaching a man of his influence. But I went. I went up to him while he was eating with all of his followers. I gave him my very best perfume that I could never afford to replace. And I poured it on his head to anoint him. His followers were furious. I remember them yelling at me. That's criminal. This could have been sold for a lot of money, handed out to the poor. I was so scared. But I will never forget. It was he who stood up for me. He gave me my dignity back. I remember his words as if it were yesterday. Why are you giving this woman a hard time? She has done something wonderfully significant for me. You will have the poor with you every day for the rest of your lives, but not me. When she poured this perfume on my body, what she really did was anoint me for burial. You can be sure that wherever in the whole world the good news is preached, what she has done is going to be remembered and admired. Me? Remembered and admired? In my line of work, I am never remembered or admired. I thought I was forgotten. I thought I was a disgrace to society. But he saw me. He saw me for me and not what I did in my life. Later on, I heard that one of his followers, I think his name was Judas the Iscariot, he went to the high priest to make a deal with them. A deal to betray and hand his friend over to them. You know, I heard that it was for 30 pieces of silver. The betrayal. Who can betray a friend like that? One that doesn't deserve it.
This is a time where we will participate in communion together. You can have your elements of the bread or cracker and wine or juice ready. You see, we believe that all people can participate in communion here at GC Surrey Hills because Jesus creates and invites all to his table. And if you don't wish to participate, you know what? That's okay. You still have a place and belong here, just as you are. Jesus and his disciples entered the city of Jerusalem to observe a customary meal to the Jewish community called the Passover meal. This several hundred-year tradition was in celebration of God's deliverance of the Israelite oppression and slavery to the Egyptians. Now, typically, this meal was shared with others that were considered relatives or very close friends. Jesus was actually reclined at the table observing this typical tradition with the people he had been with for 3.5 years, his friends. However, this particular meal, it had a different meaning. The bread shared during the meal was to remember God's provision during the hasty exit of the Israelites' old life of slavery into a newfound life of freedom. The wine during this traditional meal was a symbolic memorial of God's saving act from death. And this was accomplished by the blood of a sacrificed pure male lamb that was smeared across their ancestors' door jambs. when Jesus takes the bread and he breaks it into many pieces, stating, "Take it, for this is my body," his statement has a significant meaning to the disciples of that time, but also to us right now. And just like the Israelite ancestors, we can hastily flee from our old life of slavery, bondage, and selfishness, and we can trust in Him to guide us into a new life of freedom in Jesus. He is the one who provides. He is the one who gives life. Take, eat, and remember the life Jesus has for you. Jesus takes the cup of wine. He thanks God for it, and he passes it around to the disciples, and he says, "This is my blood, which confirms the covenant between God and his people. It is poured out as a sacrifice for many." The final sacrifice for humanity is about to occur, and this sacrifice is for all. This recreation of humanity in Jesus is coming to full completion. And it is only because of Jesus and his work. There's nothing that we can do, my brothers and sisters. However, this saving work of Jesus is done in relationship. Jesus breaks the bread, and everyone there participates in his sharing of life with one another. Jesus takes the cup and pours into it, but all participate in his sharing of life with one another. This is more than just an individualistic unfolding of recreation. It is done in community with one another. As you drink, my brothers and sisters, remember Jesus, but also remember your brothers and sisters in Jesus. Take, drink, and remember the freedom we already have in Jesus.
We had just finished our Passover dinner when Jesus wanted to take a walk and go to the Garden of Gethsemane on the Mount of Olives. On the way, he began to tell us that we would all desert him. As he was saying this, nobody was saying anything. I just couldn't stand there and listen to this nonsense. So I spoke up. I told him, even if everyone deserts you, I will never do that. The next words that he said would hurt. He turned to me, looked me right in the eyes, and told me, "I tell you the truth, Peter, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Deny that you even know me." What? What, me deny him? Not once, but 3 times? I responded to him, "No, I will never, not even if I will have to die with you, will I ever deny you." The rest of the disciples, of course, followed my lead and made the same vow. I would have fought for him. I even tried, and he stopped me. Why? Why did he stop me? He was innocent. I would never have denied him. Never. But that woman, that slave. And then the other people standing there asking if I knew him. No, 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 I don't know that man. And then the sound that would haunt me as a reminder of denying him. 3 times a rooster's crow.
After what Peter, my brother John, and I vowed to Jesus, we could see a deep grief within him. We hadn't seen him like this. If I were to be completely honest, there was an unusually eerie stillness in the air. Something was very different this night. Jesus needed to be alone and told us to stay back and stay awake. Because of the stillness and he only being about a stone's throw away, we could hear a little bit of what he was praying. It was troubling to me. I remember him saying to God, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not what I want, but what you want." I'll be honest, we couldn't stay awake. It was getting late. Jesus came back, woke us up, asking that we stay awake, and he went off again. I heard him saying to God, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." We ended up dozing off again. If I would have known that would have been the last hours with him, I would have stayed awake. I would have stayed strong. I really wish I would have stayed awake. I wish I would have been praying with him. I let him down. You could tell when he came back that something was very, very wrong. After waking us up the second time, you could see blood where there was normally sweat. It was then when this army of people with swords and clubs showed up to arrest him. And guess who was there? Judas. I was so angry I wanted to hit Judas. Peter then draws his sword and cuts off the ear of a man, arresting Jesus. I was about to get into the fight too. We were going to protect Jesus. But Jesus, he stepped between us, between the two groups. He emphatically told us to stop. Why though? Then he healed a man whose ear was cut off. He even turned to Judas and told him to do what he was there to do. The confusing thing was that you could still see his love for Judas in his eyes. They took him away. We were scared. We thought these people would come back for us. So we did the only thing we could think of. We ran. We deserted him. He was alone.
In the darkness we were waiting, without hope, without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes, to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. Oh God, we praise you. To reveal the kingdom coming and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, for even in your suffering you saw the other side. Knowing this was our salvation, Jesus, for our sake you died. Oh, praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. The King of Kings.
I woke up very disturbed from a dream that I had the night before. It didn't make sense at the time until I heard that my husband, the governor, had brought a man to be tried, to be put to death. The man the Jewish leaders brought was the man in my dream. He was innocent. This man, who was called the King of the Jews, was transported to Herod and then back to my husband. I sent word to my husband about my dream and this man's innocence and how he should have nothing to do with this man. My husband tried to hand this trial back to the Jewish leaders and have them settle it, but they wanted that man executed. My husband gave the option to release that awful murderer, Barabbas, or this quiet, innocent man, Jesus. The crowd shouted and shouted, "Release Barabbas! Release Barabbas! "Crucify Jesus! Crucify him!" A riot was bound to happen if my husband didn't do something and give the crowd what they wanted. My husband washed his hands of the accusations toward this man Jesus. To the mob's request, he released Barabbas and ordered that Jesus be crucified. This man Jesus was treated like Barabbas should have been. And Barabbas got treated like Jesus should have been treated. Innocent and set free.
We were given the orders to take the prisoner back to Pilate's headquarters in preparation of his execution. The cohort came together around this criminal, and we did what we always do to prisoners of the governor, and who are actually set to be executed. We humiliated him. We heard that he was to bring some kind of new kingdom and was king of the Jews. Some kind of king he is. We stripped his clothes off, wrapped a scarlet robe around him, made a beautiful crown for him made of twisted thorns, and shoved it on his head. We all laughed as he stood there, a king, and mocked him by kneeling and proclaiming, "Hail the King of the Jews." We stripped him of that royal robe of his, blindfolded him, and we beat him and beat him and beat him. But I noticed something about him. He never pleaded with us. He never tried to fight back. He just took it. My fellow soldiers kept beating him and mocking him, but I found myself stepping back, seeing all the abuse and torture and suffering we were inflicting on him, and yet he had this sense of peace that I just couldn't understand. After we were done with him, you couldn't even recognize him from how much he suffered at the hands of us. As we led him to the place of the skull for execution, I couldn't help but wonder, is he truly the Son of God?
My mom would always bring me out to see the criminals who were being crucified. She'd always make it a teachable moment to do what's right. But this day was different. Instead of scoffing and ridiculing this criminal, there was a deep sadness. As this man passed by, I could visibly see the grief in her eyes and the tears streaming down her face. It was hard for me to tell which criminal it was. I had heard a lot about a man named Barabbas and how he was going to be executed. But why would my mom be upset about a man like that? Like Barabbas? Then, in the small gaps between the crowd of people, I caught a glimpse. I saw the criminal who was going to be executed. But it was Jesus. I've heard so much about the amazing things he did for people. He was always doing good and helping people. Why was he being led to Golgotha? At one point, my mom was so distraught that she was beating her chest in protest and wailing for him. But Jesus, with his beaten, bleeding, and swollen eyes, turned to my mom and said, "Do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children." We lost sight of him after they asked a man who looked to be from Cyrene to carry Jesus' cross. I'll never forget the look in Jesus' eyes. There was a deep sense of love that I had never seen before.
He is jealous for me. He loves like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. And all of a sudden, I am unaware of these afflictions, eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, oh, how he loves us. How he loves us. Oh. He is jealous for me. Love like a hurricane, I am the tree, bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. And all of a sudden, I am unaware of these afflictions, eclipsed by glory, and realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. How he loves us, oh, how he loves us, oh, how he loves us, oh, how he loves Yes, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Yes, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh,
With his 12 disciples, I followed him for years. I saw all the remarkable things he did. I didn't just hear him talk about God's love. I witnessed him showing us what God's love looks like. This day, though, it was agonizing. I was there. Many women were there, including his mother. No mother should ever have to see their child in that way. To hear his screams of agony each time the hammer would strike the nails deeper and deeper into his flesh. His bleeding, torn apart, and beaten body hoisted up on that cross. Yet even still, as he hung there, struggling to gasp for air, he spoke love and life, saying, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing." He continued to show us God's love as he suffered. Around noon, a strange darkness came over the land. And it wasn't until about 3 in the afternoon when everything would change. Heartbreak, grief, anger, it all began to well up inside of me. And then with his last ounce of energy that he could muster, our beloved Jesus pulled himself up and he cried out, "It is finished." And then his body went limp.